Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today I made another Hollow Knight Lightbox. For this Lightbox, I decided to do this picture from the Lake of Unn because I really love all the details and the composition, and the moss knight overlooking the lake is really cute. So let's just get into it, and right off the bat I started off with a mistake. Basically I forgot to flip my image, so the whole thing ended up being backwards. So great start! The first layer I started on was the layer with the dock and the moss knight on it. Since the image is so detailed, I wanted to do it justice and add as much details as possible, but I didn't want too many layers, so I didn't do too many. I drew out a bunch of rocks and even the little birds sitting on the ground, and I made sure to add the grass too, and then I drew in all the details of the metalwork on the dock. It was a little bit tricky to copy the design because of the intricacy, but I think I managed to do pretty well. Then I just got to cutting it out. I started on the details on the bridge because it's much easier to cut these kinds of detailed areas when the rest of the page is still intact and sturdy. It was still kind of hard though because my blade was getting pretty dull and I didn't have a replacement, so I had to cut this whole light box with a dull blade, which resulted in very sore hands by the end of this. But I was excited to finish, so I kept going and I finished cutting everything on this layer. I did make a couple mistakes on the little metalwork part and I cut through a couple spots, but it's okay. And then all the rocks took quite a bit of time to cut because there were just a lot of them. And the grass was fun, and overall it was just a good layer. It had a lot of details and everything. And I didn't add the moss knight on right now because it's much easier to cut out separately and glue it on and all that stuff. So that was it for this layer. And next I got working on the layer where the temple is, and like I said before, I didn't want this light box to have too many layers, so I decided to just split the temple onto 2 layers instead of more, and this layer was the front part of that. I made sure to just add all the details like the cracks and lines around the door, then I added the vegetation around the entrance, and cutting out wasn't too difficult. The trickiest part was just cutting the curved parts of the roof because I almost cut through the wrong parts and the edges and all of that, but overall, not bad. And I wanted the bushes to have a lot of details, but I wasn't sure how, so I had the idea of taking a pin and just stabbing a bunch of holes all over the bushes to add the details, and that worked really well, and overall it looked very magical. Then I got working on the layer with the other half of the temple, and this was a little bit more tricky. There are these things that stick out of the top, I don't know what they are, and then the whole thing is covered in moss, so I found it kind of difficult to cut all the little areas because my knife was dull, but I still managed. And then I realized I wanted one more layer in the front, so I just added some bushes and poked holes and cut everything out. And once the foreground was done, I moved to the background and I just started off with a layer of simple bushes. And since there's really nothing on this layer, I moved on to the next layer, which has these, I want to say rocks, but I'm really not sure. They have these holes in them, so I had to add all of that, and it was actually easier than I thought to cut the holes out, so it wasn't too bad. then it was just a lot more of these layers, and basically it's just the same thing, but I just had to make sure the spacing was different so they look sporadic, and just move each layer up more and more so it looks good. And after quite a while of working on these layers, my hand was starting to hurt pretty bad. My fingers were cramped, I was feeling like I was getting a blister, so I took a break. And then I returned, and it was time to start on the way background where there's like a wall of rocks, like the rocks go up towards the ceiling. So I just got started on that, and I was a little bit unsure how I was going to do it, if I was going to cut the rocks as holes on parchment paper or just outline them, and I decided to just outline them because it's easier and I think it looks more like rocks. And then it just took a couple more layers of the rocks and bushes to finish up the rest of the light box. And for all these bushes, I did poke the holes just like in the foreground. And then it was time for the exciting part, which was drawing and cutting out the moss knight and a couple alubas so they'd be flying in the background. And I was really excited for the moss knight because I liked him a lot and he was super cute. And he was pretty easy to draw out. I think I made him look a little bit weird at first, but I figured it out. And then I just cut him out. And the same with the alubas. I think the alubas kind of look a little bit weird because I didn't look at a reference. And then I just glued them in their places, the moss knight onto the dock and the lubas on separate layers in the background. And last but not least, it's time to add the parchment paper for the acid lake, and this really looked good in the end, so I'm happy with it. And then it was time to assemble, and this was super fun. I really liked seeing it come together, and yeah, that's basically it. I did almost accidentally rip the moss knight off the dock because the layer got caught in another layer behind it, and then it was just a big mess, but luckily nothing ripped and it was all good. And here it is done, and I really like how this looks. It's probably one of my favorites. I know I say that every time, but really, I really like the details on this, and it just looks so nice. It looks good with all the colors, but obviously it looks the best with the normal color that it should be, which is like a green color. So yeah. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, comment below what kind of light boxes you'd like to see, and I'll see you next time. Bye!